It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Attribute the best possible motives to your partner. They're not trying to ruin your life.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to have balance in my life, catch some waves when they're around, and get all the work done that I've got overwhelming me.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the founder of happyfamilies.com.au and the parenting expert on Channel 9's parental guidance, recovering from Father's Day. I love Father's Day. I've decided I love Father's Day. I reckon this week the kids did a better job of being nice to each other and keeping the house in order and just making it a great day than they've ever done before.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it has more to do with the fact that we've been more conscious about our routines and structures than it did with Father's Day.
Yeah, we are working hard on the whole family thing. I reckon it's also got to do with the fact that they're getting older and they're being nicer to each other because they're like self-regulation. They're bigger. Do you know what I mean?
Bigger isn't always better, but in this case, it just may be.
Well, we hope that you and your family had a wonderful Father's Day. We get heaps of feedback on the Happy Families podcast. Podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au is the email address. And we really appreciate that you take the time to reach out and ask us questions, drop us notes.
One of the most requested topics we get asked about is how to make that couple relationship stronger. You know, when you have bumps along the road, how do you navigate that to create stronger relationships?
Yeah, and the strength of the relationship between parents is so important for the strength of the family. We wanted to share an example with you of how we recently dealt with a bump in our road.
So last week, you had a particularly busy week, as did I. I was involved in some significant volunteer work, which kept me extremely busy. And you were traveling like pretty much, you haven't had to travel like this for a long time. And so you were out of the house a lot. You were out at night and gone. We were having dinner without you pretty much every night of the week. And the only night you were home, I wasn't.
Yeah. Can I name drop for a sec? Some big schools have had me in, and also some organisations. I've been working with Anglican Church Grammar in Brisbane, with Clayfield College in Brisbane, with Ivanhoe Girls Grammar down in Melbourne, giving talks for parents and for staff to help people be happier, help relationships be better. So that's what I've been doing. Good work. It's not like I've been absconding from my parental and husbandly duties.
Not that I said that.
No, you didn't. Okay, so really busy time for both of us, and we're passing one another like ships in the night.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it just happens that after weeks and weeks of wanting to go surfing and the surf being absolutely flat, this week it was pumping.
Yeah.
And you just wanted to get out there and enjoy it, which I love. I love that you have an outlet and that, you've made some new friends up here and you're able to spend some time with them in the water. I think it's awesome. The problem comes when we combine the fact that you're not home at night and then you leave first thing in the morning, which means that you and I actually don't even get to have any pillow talk, any conversations that might happen without children around, or other stuff that might happen without children around as well.
Right.
So I had a conversation with you and I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what the next day was going to look like. We had literally not spent any time together. We'd had lots of phone calls, but no physical kind of conversation together. So I was hoping that at least we might get some pillow talk in the morning before the day started. But you announced that the boys had decided that the surf was good enough to go out again and you wanted to go with them. And
Well, it's not that I wanted to. I'd committed to without thinking. This is making me look really bad.
That's okay. You committed. That's fine.
Yeah.
And so I then kind of just laid out what the next few days looked like and the fact that I was going to be out the next night and then we had family over for dinner the following night and our weekend would just be disappearing. And again, we'd find ourselves in the same position. And you acknowledged at that point that it was really tough.
And I figured we understood each other. We're both having a hard time. We haven't seen each other much. There's a lot going on. Sometimes life's busy like that. I get it. It's hard.
I assumed, based on the way you responded, that you would think about the conversation that we'd had and that come the morning you would actually surprise me by turning your alarm off and just staying in bed with me.
Right. I didn't do that.
But that's not how it happened.
I went surfing.
And so I was just feeling really, really let down. You tried to give me a cuddle before you left, and I couldn't understand, after how explicit I'd been on the phone the day before about how lacking in time we'd had, that you would be making the decision you were making. But nevertheless, you did.
I'm not a mind reader. I thought that we just understood each other. It's hard. You didn't explicitly say, can you not surf tomorrow? So I thought it was okay that I was surfing. Like I said, this is a revelation. Carry on.
So by the time you got home, I was really, really upset, and you felt it. You tried to connect with me. You tried to have conversations with me. You tried to have a cuddle with me, and I was just not into it. I just was busy doing what I needed to do, and I didn't want to have a bar of you, until finally you recognised that this was not going to go away in a hurry. So you closed the door behind us and you said, we need to sit down. We need to have a talk.
Yes.
And at that point, you were able to take a step back and recognise what you thought may have been the problem. And so you articulated that to me. You said that you recognised that I was feeling pretty upset about things, and as you'd thought about it, you could recognise that maybe going for a surf this morning, considering the week we'd had, was not the best choice you could have made, and that it had left me feeling isolated, unheard, and a little bit unloved, and that you really wanted to be better for me. In the process of that, I recognised that while that was part of it, what actually upset me was that I felt like I had had a conversation with you the day before and had highlighted all of those things and why going for a surf the next morning wasn't actually the best idea for our relationship, and that you had completely ignored my plea for time together. So
after the break, we're going to talk about apparently how this is going to help people to have better relationships.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Our boys are struggling with friends, mental health, alcohol, drugs, pornography, emotions, and so much more. But science tells us that the most important thing for your son's well-being is his connection with you. The Bringing Up Boys Summit is about one thing: taking you into your son's world and helping you connect with him in the way he needs you to. Find out more on the Happy Families webshop and start connecting with your son today.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And we've just laid it out on the table, honey.
So how do we take this scenario and help people to have better relationships? I mean, this is the request that we get a lot, and you've selected this as a scenario where people can learn what to do. Is it just when your wife says to you, I miss you, don't go surfing the next day? Or is it about the conversation that we had? Like, did the conversation save the day? How do you want to unpack this, and what are the take-home messages that can help people to navigate? And it's such a generic, boring, in some ways, everyday scenario where people misread one another and get it wrong. And it could have blown up. It could have turned into a 3-day stonewalling, I'm not talking to you, you don't pay attention to me situation. But it didn't.
Definitely. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to pick it is, like you said, it is just a generic everyday occurrence.
Yep.
We're not perfect, and these scenarios happen in all kinds of relationships, not just our, intimate other.
Okay, so where do we take this then? How do you want to unpack it, and what lessons are there?
I thought you were the expert.
Right, okay. All right. That's not what I was expecting you to say either.
So there's a couple of things that stand out to me.
Sure.
So over the years, our relationship has developed and strengthened, and our level of communication has improved out of sight. I have come from a family where we didn't talk about problems, and if we did, it wasn't pretty at all. And you are a really big communicator, and so that has been a challenge for me over the years. Getting to a point where you have become a lot more articulate about what you are noticing in me has been really, really powerful.
Right.
You haven't tried to fix me.
Or fix the situation.
Yeah, you're not trying to fix me or the situation, but you're also taking full responsibility for the part that you play in it, regardless of whether I'm able to take responsibility for me.
Okay, so if I was to wind this back a little bit, here's what I'm going to pull out of it as lessons based on what you've just said. First off, I blew it. I heard what you were saying, and I even empathized and understood what you were saying, but I didn't perceive the opportunity to take action, or at least I didn't prioritize the action that was necessary. I knew that you wanted me to stay with you, but I'd made a commitment to the guys. The surf was supposed to be pumping, and that's kind of where my head, I was tunnel vision, one track mind, that's where I'm going.
And that's what happens in real life, right?
Of course, yeah. We've got our own agendas.
Own agendas, and we become one track mind. Because in my mind, you had nearly 18, 20 hours of notice to be able to let the boys down.
And
it
say,
wasn't
I
like
can't make it.
You were texting them 20 minutes before you were supposed to be meeting them. I had a conversation with you which would allow you to have done that. But again, it's that agenda driven
and we get tunnel vision, right?
Mentality
I'm
that we
going
all have.
this way, this is what I'm doing. And wives do it, husbands do it, parents do it, kids do it. It's just a human tendency. But what this also highlights is that when there's a rupture in the relationship, we need to repair it. And so when I came home from the surf, you were cranky at me and you're saying, I didn't try to fix you. I didn't try to diminish or devalue your emotions. I didn't tell you to get over it. I didn't say, well, what, am I just not allowed to have a surf? I didn't get defensive. What I did instead was I literally said, I totally get why you feel the way you feel, and I overstepped. I got this wrong. It was a total misread on my part, and I shouldn't have done what I did. But that's only part of it. What you're also saying is, I didn't tell you that you weren't okay for feeling it or demand that you forgive me. What I did instead was say, you're feeling hurt, you're feeling like we're not getting time together, and you're feeling like I'm getting my priorities all wrong.
Well, what I loved about it was that you recognized that inherently, I wasn't saying you were a bad person. The hurt that I had was because I miss being with you.
Yeah.
And so often that is actually the underlying issue. We're not getting the connection time that we want together, but it comes out in a form of anger or frustration instead of actually just the deep sadness that connection is not there.
And again, this is a perfect scenario because so many couples would go through exactly this kind of thing. And I love the way that you've highlighted it comes out as anger, because anger is a secondary emotion. We've talked about this on the podcast many times. Anger comes from another emotion. In this case, it's loneliness or sadness. It's a desire to be connected and to be seen, heard, and valued, and that's just not there. But the other thing that I'm taking from the way you've deconstructed the scenario was that as I spoke to you, I didn't try to promise I'll never do it again, or I'm going to make it all better because I won't go to work today and I'll stay home with you. I didn't do any of those things, and I didn't tell you were wrong for feeling it. I just said, here's what I did that was wrong. I get why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. I'm really sorry. Is that about it?
Yeah.
I didn't try to fix you, didn't try to change the situation, just let it be, but I acknowledged it.
Yeah, totally.
And how does that work? I mean, even as I'm saying this out loud, I'm wondering, was there more? I'm kind of feeling like that's a little bit empty. Like, did I not do anything groundbreaking or revolutionary or relationship saving?
No, but that's the crazy thing. We think that we've got to do these amazing, superhero efforts to have these beautiful relationships, but it's actually the mundane, everyday attempts at those bids for connection that make all the difference.
I didn't even stop for flowers.
You didn't.
Saved all that money just by being with you.
But one of the biggest things I think that I have come to recognize in the strength of our relationship is being able to own our own stuff.
Right. I can't make you mad. You've got to choose to be mad.
Yeah. And so in spite of the fact that you knew I was upset, you recognized the part you played in it, but you only carried your part. You didn't take on my part. There's a part of me, the part where I wasn't willing to meet you. I was angry, and I was actually turning away from you as a result of that anger. That's not yours. That's mine. That's mine to own. And so being able to come to the party and recognize that there's a two-way connection happening here, and each of us play a part in it, and being able to take responsibility for the part you play.
So the take-home message as we wrap this podcast up, if you want to have a stronger relationship and there's been friction, there's been conflict, there's been a misalignment of priorities, in whatever way that may play out for you in your family, what are the key points that we want to pull out of this whole podcast, the absolute take-home message?
Number one, own your own stuff. Take responsibility for the part you play and apologise.
Okay, so and that goes both ways, right? You had to own your stuff as much as I had to own mine.
That's right.
And you haven't yet apologised.
I'm sorry, honey.
What's number two?
Attribute the best possible motives to your partner. They're not trying to ruin your life.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to have balance in my life, catch some waves when they're around, and get all the work done that I've got overwhelming me. And also, I mean, I thought we were connecting on the phone, but I had the best possible motives. It's just that I didn't really recognise that priorities needed to shift. What's number 3?
And the last one, make sure your expectations are clear and that you've set boundaries.
Yeah, this is really important, because otherwise you end up with a husband who consistently thinks that it's okay to go surfing and neglect you in the mornings when you really just want to have some time for connection. And so by owning your own stuff and having those conversations, you get to make sure that you're holding the line on boundaries that matter to you.
And I guess articulating
Precisely what you want.
Precisely what you want. So in that situation, what I should have done is, based on the week we've had and the weekend that we are going to have, would you mind giving up surfing tomorrow morning so that we can have time in bed?
Yeah, can you send a text to the guys and say you need some family time?
Okay, watch out next week.
You should know that there's no surf on the forecast for a while. You're safe. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media, with Craig Bruce as our executive producer. For more information about making your family happier, please join us at happyfamilies.com.au.